For the Royal Navy, the year 1970 was overshadowed by a very sad loss. A few days before Christmas, friends, colleagues and leading public figures from all walks of life gathered at Westminster Abbey for the memorial service for Admiral of the Fleet Sir Michael Leffernew, who died in November at the age of 57. Ill health had already forced him to forego the office of Chief of the Defence Staff, which he would surely have filled with characteristic distinction. Representatives of the Army and Royal Air Force and from NATO were a reminder of the high regard felt for him in services and countries other than our own. Sir Michael commanded the affection of all who knew him, whatever their rank. A guard of honour from Whale Island, in tribute to a former gunnery officer. Admiral Sir Peter Hill Norton, who succeeded Sir Michael Leffernew as First Sea Lord, speaks on behalf of the Navy as a whole.
I consider it an honour and a privilege to have been asked to pay this tribute to Admiral Leffernew. I've known him for 40 years. He was an ideas man, an enthusiast, a leader with tremendous panache. He was never a pomp and circumstance man by nature. The tremendous sense of fun that went with it is known to us all. He always preferred the unconventional approach. Nevertheless, he was a serious and brilliant professional. All his life, Admiral Leffernew had taken a tremendous interest in young people, and he was very active before the war in boys' clubs in the East End of London. He has, for many years past, also taken a tremendous interest in a wide range of charitable activities, in particular those connected with research into polio, from which his wife suffers and which she has so bravely and uncomplainingly surmounted. The manner in which he and Lady Leffernew depended upon and inspired each other was an example to us all. He was greatly loved by all, greatly admired and respected as well. He was above all interested in people. Everybody who met him became his friend. We and the Navy shall be the poorer without him.
Early in the year, a happy occasion, as Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth the Queen Mother was welcomed by Captain Ray Ligo on board HMS Ark Royal, recommissioning at Devonport after a 3-year, £3 million refit. Commander Nicholas Hunt was first to be presented to Her Majesty, before she went to join the 4,000 guests, including several past captains, gathered in the upper hangar for the commissioning ceremony. After the cake cutting and the 20-minute service, the Queen Mother met people from every department of the ship. Young Barry Marshall didn't bat an eyelid as the Queen Mother chatted to his mother Wendy and father leading steward James Marshall. Barry, 3 months old, couldn't have cared less about his star part in Ark Royal's big day. Up at Barrow in March, Mrs. John Morris and a bottle of homemade wine, believe it or not, saw HMS Courageous off to a good start in life. Some of the guests got a periscope view as the Navy's 6th nuclear-powered fleet submarine took to the water. One of 300 submarines that have been launched at Barrow, with 2 more nuclear subs on the stocks at Vickers to follow in the wake of Courageous. Fast work in the West Country. The reborn Ark Royal sails from Plymouth a week after starting her new commission. For wives, sweethearts and well-wishers, a sight to remember. The Navy's most powerful ship off for sea trials, her flight deck reshaped for the Navy's first Phantoms. The midnight sun, and a job that means more sea time than most, fishery protection. HMS Malcolm watches over our trawlers north of Norway. She sent her doctor to one of them to perform an emergency operation. Later it was up the fjords and into harbour at Tromsø. Malcolm's captain has a sense of humour. Latitudes being what they are in the frozen north, the ship had actually been operating east of Suez. So he ordered the pipe, rig of the day, tropical. By some miracle, it was a warm and sunny day at Manadon in May when families and friends gathered to greet the Duke of Edinburgh. He'd come to present the Queen's Sword to Lieutenant Joseph Ruston, top in engineering application courses. A proud moment for him. His parents, by the way, had flown from Malta for the great occasion. In the course of ceremonial divisions, the young engineers raised enough steam for a march past. Later in the day, the Duke was to see the facilities which make the Navy's engineering college one of the most advanced in Britain. Now a spectacle we're used to in Scranbag, a Polaris missile firing. HMS Revenge, last of Britain's quartet of Polaris submarines, left for the Cape Kennedy test range. As usual, both port and starboard crews had a go, and both performed perfectly. Rocketing along here, HMS Scimitar, first of the Navy's new fast training boats. Built by Vosper Thornycroft, powered by Rolls-Royce, she nips along at a speed, to quote the Ministry, in excess of 40 knots. Scimitar is now with the tongue-twisting first fast training boat squadron. What's all this about speed? It's stamina that counts. True, if you're a survey ship. At Chatham, 2 of them, Bulldog and Beagle, commissioned together. A good idea. You only need 1 cake, even if it takes 4 pairs of hands to cut it. Sherry's is all right for some, but give me a can of beer any day. Bulldog and Beagle made the most of this opportunity to socialise. There's not much chance now that they're in commission. Deep sea survey means what it says. It doesn't often include surveying the pleasures of port. In October, the premiere in London of Tora, 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 the spectacular film about the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. It was the usual West End premiere scene, a case of spot the stars and starlets, and in this case, the admirals too. The Vice Chief of Naval Staff, Admiral Ashmore, was there to mingle with the show business personalities and top celebrities in the film industry. All of them there for a film about a turning point in human history. The Second Sea Lord, Admiral Lewis, was also among the distinguished guests, as was another character enjoying a night on the run from Eric Morecambe. From Japan, the man who led that terrible attack on the American Navy, Lieutenant Commander Mitsuo Fushida, now a Christian lay preacher. And from HMS Dido, 6 sailors invited as guests of honour, together with the girl of their choice. They nominated actress Jean Harrington, and she was duly detailed. She didn't seem to object in the least to having 6 sailors in her supporting cast. Now, here's a lad who's likely to succeed. His decision to join the Navy was announced on the eve of the pay rise. Admiral Lewin welcomed him on board HMS Charybdis to get in a bit of sea time while he and the ship were in Fiji for the independence ceremonies. Midshipman Healers of Charybdis could almost pass for the Prince of Wales, and he might need a double one of these days. Captain Foster was breaking Prince Charles in gently. He enters the Navy in September 1971. Independence for Fiji was the cue for some very colourful celebrations. So this is why the Fijians are good in a rugby line-out. The Prince of Wales was representing the Queen at the independence ceremonies, and the Fijian ladies duly performed for him. The Royal Navy was well represented, and the warm-hearted Fijians gave them the full island treatment. 1970 was a year of celebration in Bermuda, marking the 350th anniversary of parliamentary government there. It was another occasion on which His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales was called on to represent his mother. Lord Martinmere welcomed him and escorted the Prince on his round of official duties. Even if you're not a tax-troubled millionaire, Bermuda's an attractive spot, and the Grey Funnel Line offered a cruise. 3 characters from HMS Sirius decided to take a mechanised run ashore. They were Junior Seaman Dave Christie, Able Seaman Len Charrington, and Leading Seaman Eamon Padden. They set off down the Malabar Road and across the homely-sounding Little Watford Road Bridge. The object of the trip, to have a look at Gibbs Hill Lighthouse. The men from Sirius were lucky to have nothing more serious than sightseeing on the agenda. They'd been sent to Bermuda in case of riots, which fortunately didn't develop. So Dave, Len and Eamon had nothing but pleasant memories of Bermuda to take back home with them to Pompey. It was a much bleaker prospect for the successful joint services expedition which set out for Elephant Island in November. This is a stark mountainous place near mainland Antarctica, permanently covered with ice. No wonder it had remained largely unexplored until now. The cheerful naval contingent: Commander Malcolm Burley, expedition leader; Christopher Furse, zoologist; Tony Rackham, surveyor; John Hunt, mammal expert; and Chief Petty Officer Burkitt, champion on skis. Now 1970's most terrible tragedy, the waters that overwhelmed perhaps 2 million people in Pakistan. The Navy sped from Singapore with massive help. The heavy repair ship Triumph. The assault ship Intrepid, linked by Skynet satellite with London and Singapore, her assault craft ready for non-stop ferrying duties. Sir Galahad, supply ship, bringing hundreds of tons of stores. The full horror of the disaster soon became apparent. All the Navy's many means of transport were called into action to land some 3,000 tons in all of food, first aid supplies and other desperately needed necessities. The Wessex helicopters of 847 Squadron were constantly airborne. A shore party of some 600 men of the Navy, Army and Royal Marines made sure that the stores reached the right people. The villagers soon got used to these noisy friends dropping in on them. The 15-day operation made many friends. In the words of the force commander, Commodore Derek Napper, the British forces had done what they came to do. It was proof, if any were needed, that Britain's presence east of Suez can be highly effective, and not only in war. We end the 1970 edition with a blast of hot air. The men of Ark Royal look on as preparations are made to launch her first ever hot air balloon. Oh well, it's one alternative to fixed wing flying, I suppose. When the Bristol Belle had attained her full vital statistics, Ark Royal's intrepid aviators, Lieutenant Terry Adams and Lieutenant Howard Draper, were cleared for takeoff. Destination Malta, not very far distant, by the way. All in a day's ballooning for Lieutenant Adams, who's got a license for this kind of thing. Making a landfall in Malta was not so easy, owing to uncertain winds, which must have made the escorting chopper feel a bit superior. But although the balloon hit the ground a bit sharpish, Bristol Belle was bang on for a rendezvous with Malta's postal chief. The object of the exercise, to hand over mail from Ark Royal at the GPO in Valletta, where the letters were specially stamped. And here's Postie Adams looking properly pleased with himself. And Howard Draper, thankful it was over, at last. And that's the last word on Scranbag 1970.